Welcome back to AFTV, everyone. Arsenal put 5 past Sheffield United in what was a rotated 11 that still delivered the kind of quality, the goals, the expectations of Arsenal fans, which, with all due respect to Sheffield United, wasn't just to win, but get up the goal difference a little bit, show a little bit more fluidity to our players, show a little bit more. You know, Arsenal haven't all season been at the heights of last season in terms of scoring goals, but we got the 5 in this game. Breaking down how we did it and more is me and Graham on Tactical. Welcome back, Graham. Let's just get into it very quickly. It was comfortable, wasn't it? Even Arsenal didn't really have to be at their best to do it.
No, we played against a team who really looked like they were playing to avoid a hammering, but still got hammered. At the end of the day, it was a sensational hat-trick from Nketiah that inspired the Gunners to a 5-0 victory over Sheffield United. I thought all 3 of his goals exhibited elements of a goal scorer's art. The first goal, the composure, the turn, the composure to slot in the first goal to break the deadlock after, let's face it, the first 20 minutes, James, had been a little bit flat.
Yeah.
The second goal, he showed instinctive reaction when the goalkeeper failed to hold a corner. It was a poacher's finish. And the third goal, absolute power and precision with the technique, the way he took it and absolutely lashed it into the top of the goal.
Yeah.
3 different goals. And in the end, it was a perfect day for Arsenal, a perfect day for Arteta. He heavily rotated the side.
Yeah.
He left out his captain, who he said was carrying a slight knock. He rotated at the back. He brought players on, used the full squad. And in the end, we won the game comfortably without exerting too much energy. Completely
agree. And the match stats kind of allude to that because Arsenal had 13 shots to Sheffield United's 2. And I think when I say alludes to that is the fact that we were very efficient. I kept saying, you know, on Forever Arsenal, in Full-Time Show, Arsenal were very efficient and effective. 7 of our 13 shots were on target. That's brilliant. You know, you're regularly asking a question of Foderingham and goal. 67% possession to their 33%. 600 passes, an XG of 2.7. For context, Man City in their game against Man United, and this is where I talk about us not getting out of second gear, Man City had 21 shots in that game, accumulated an XG of 4.13. So that was away at Old Trafford against Man United. Now I'm not sitting here saying we didn't play as well as what I'm saying. Man City had a real fluidity that I think they needed to break down Man United, who were quite stubborn in that first half. Arsenal, on the other hand, were very efficient, a lot of retaining possession. You said you saw Arteta regularly telling the team, you know, play back, open the pitch up. It wasn't all about, you know, with every time we had the ball trying to attack. There's a patience and kind of calmness to Arsenal's play.
Yeah, one thing I noticed in the ground on Saturday was that the crowd want the ball forward. They want the ball forward really quickly. And I kept noticing because I was at the clock end on Saturday, so I kept looking. I sit above Arteta, so I don't see everything, but I see quite clearly he was telling the players, calm, keep the ball, patience. He wanted patience, and he wanted them to just keep the football and move it. He didn't want it to be quickly got forward. He wanted to sort of keep possession, and I think, you know, I think the fans are going to have to get used to this. You know,
I agree.
We played against a team, and we're going to talk about the way they set up today. They normally play a back 5, James, but they've had injuries. They reverted to a back 4. But they defended with a back 6, and I know we're going to get into that later.
Yeah, we are. Just quickly on the attacking stats, 64 final third entries, so they're 17, 56 deep touches, 28 zone 14 touches, and a whopping 80% field tilt for Arsenal. A couple extra attacking stats you sent through. We had 4 big chances in the game and scored from all 4 of them, apparently, and a 90% pass accuracy, which kind of leans into the fact that Arsenal weren't just trying to get balls into the box, weren't just trying to, you know, concede possession in trying to get goals with every attack. Like we said, there was a calmness, there was a patience, and Arsenal showed that. Now, let's have a look at the 2 11s. And I know what you're all thinking, that's not the 11 we went with. You're absolutely right. Because Arsenal and Arteta rotated perhaps more heavily than, well, certainly more heavily than I expected. I expected some changes, but not quite this many. Now, if we just start to go through, Tomiyasu, Gabriel, Jorginho, Odegaard and Jesus all came out of the team. Some for tactical reasons, Jesus injured, for example, and then we ended up with this 11 out here. Now, what did you make of Odegaard coming out the team for this game? Didn't even get on the pitch.
Well, I must admit, I'll be honest with you, what worried me about Odegaard not playing, obviously, first of all, I think he's your captain, and I know he hasn't been great the last 2 games, but you want your captain to play through in different form, I think. But what worried me more is what he offers us, even when he's not brilliant on the ball, what he offers us off the ball, his work rate, his pressing.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, we're going to miss that today.
Yeah.
Albeit, you could argue Sheffield United, if we're going to not play him in one game, this was the game not to play him.
Yeah, I agree.
They are bottom of the league. They haven't won a game. They've only had one draw in there.
And riddled with injuries. I will in their defence
and
say
their best player,
well.
McBurney, didn't play, for example. So that was a big loss for them. So when I saw the 11, I thought this was a great chance for Kai Havertz, because Kai Havertz, the number 8 there, he made his name in Germany playing in this position, on the right-sided number 8 position. So I thought this was a great chance for him. I was pleased to see Smith Rowe come into the team. I thought that, I think this was an opportunity for him. He's been knocking on the door. And overall, I'm quite happy to see Declan Rice in the 6. I know you like him in the number 8, box to box, but I just think he's going to make his future at Arsenal in that number 6 position. And I think, that's his best position.
I do agree. Long term, this is where Rice will be.
And I think it made sense to keep the squad involved, Kivior hasn't played a lot of football. Gabriel, obviously rested him, brought Kivior in. And I thought he had a really good game. I thought...
Yeah, I really like
I was reasonably happy with the lineup, I have to say, because, obviously disappointed that Jesus picked up the injury, because he's just starting to get going, isn't he, this season? Having just come into the team. So obviously a big loss. Eddie came in, Eddie's an able deputy. So overall, we kept the same shape, and I thought it would give us opportunity for certain players to sort of make their mark.
Now, you wanted to touch on the Sheffield United back 6 we saw at times. Now, sometimes when people talk about a back 6, you may be thinking the wingers will drop back and make it a 6. They did it slightly differently, and it was very... Look, while Arsenal scored 5 goals and it was comfortable, there was a frustration that first 25 minutes because there just weren't spaces to play through that easily when we got in and around their penalty area.
They were blocking the pockets, and they were defending quite deep. So the 2 centre-halves were very, very deep, Trusty and Robinson. I thought their pivot, Sousa and Norwood, were spending a lot of time back here, making this a back 6. I thought Brewster played almost like the lone forward, and then these 3 players tucked in into the spaces. So what you had, I think, what they wanted, so when Arsenal looked to get high, and Arsenal had their 5 lanes. They want 6, so they want an overload in those areas.
You think they were very much thinking about the Arsenal front 5, and
and I think that's what they wanted. They knew that Arsenal would have 5 lanes up high. They knew Arsenal would have all the ball, so they wanted to defend in a back 6. It is extremely difficult to break down a back 6. Because primarily they've condensed all the spaces. And I think Arsenal in that first 20 minutes was struggling to deal with this. There was a very flatness. Martinelli was the one bright spark, I thought, early. But I think what Arsenal were looking for was a Zinchenko. He was inverting, but also getting up high, swapping places with Martinelli and Declan Rice. These are the 2 players, I thought, who were primarily, I think, ultimately the ones who made the difference. Zinchenko was doing some good stuff up high, creating opportunities. He was very progressive with his passing, looking to break lines. And Declan Rice was the one who got forward eventually. I know you're going to break down his involvement in the goal, but before you do that, I just thought Smith Rowe was neat and tidy, but didn't offer too much. Kai Havertz, I just want to see more from him, James. I want to see him being a bit more brave. I want to see him sort of darting in or playing 1-2s. I thought Odegaard and Saka normally got that good combination. I was looking at that. Was there going to be a great bit of combination play with maybe Rice coming high? Didn't see it. I thought Havertz was neat and tidy again, but didn't offer any bravery. So I thought overall, Sheffield, for that first 25 minutes until the goal, were quite comfortable defending in a 6. And I think the crowd were just starting to get a little bit impatient because we hadn't really created too much. And so much so that Bukayo Saka, we have to say, captain for the day. Great for him. How boy captain, that he ended up switching over onto this side towards the back end of the first half to sort of work in tandem with Smith Rowe and Martinelli. But in that first half, they kept him really quiet in that first 20 minutes, and they were defending in this back 6. And I think it needed something special to break them down, and we got that with Declan Rice.
Yeah, we did. Now, from the shape, there's kind of so many talking points. One of them is the midfield and the 8, Smith Rowe and Havertz coming into what was a rotated side. The other is the back 6. So keep the back 6 thing in your mind, because we need to go back to that when we talk about the goal. I want to start by just talking quickly about, if we just bring this all back up as it was. I want to talk about the changes that Arteta made. There we go, let's get to this frame here. And then let's bring the 11 up. This should do it. Right. Now, we were talking off camera about Smith Rowe and Havertz and how they did in this game. And I think the general feeling from everyone was they did fine. They're okay. Like, you know, we didn't... Smith Rowe probably a little bit better than Havertz, but we didn't see the kind of performances that we were kind of hoping. Now, I sort of said on Forever Arsenal that I actually forgive Smith Rowe. And that's not an agenda against Havertz. I forgive Smith Rowe because his first start in the Premier League in a very long time. He hasn't actually been coming on that much compared to Havertz, who started games and often been coming on from the bench. And I thought, I've been there I've never ever played football to a level anywhere near this. But I've played football at a uni level where and I think this is applicable across the game. I said this on Forever Arsenal as well, where you almost, when you play in a game that's a level above what you're used to, sometimes your first thought is, for this first one, let me just get the basics right and get through it. That's applicable across all levels of football for me. And I think that's what we got from Smith Rowe. Let me work hard, let me give the 1-2s, and we play the ball neatly, and let's just get through the 90. And then maybe in the next game, you'll probably play against West Ham, you know, his performance will evolve. But I also think that if Arteta's going to get what he wants out of Smith Rowe and Havertz, and this is where my defence of these players comes in, I think he's got to redecide what he wants from them. Because we've actually seen them play in midfield 3 times now. And it kind of passes us by because we're talking about sub-appearances, Carabao Cup games. This is their 3rd time playing together, Smith Rowe and Havertz in midfield. Now against Brentford, I'm just going to swap their sides. Smith Rowe was in this space. The Kevin De Bruyne midfield 3 position. You know, expected to underlap with the right winger, expected to get forward in support, and he's kind of like a box-to-box / creative right 8. And Havertz was doing that on the left against Brentford. Against Chelsea, they come on and they get into this shape. So the first time was Brentford. The second time, Chelsea, they get into this shape. But Arteta quickly recognises that not only does he want to swap their sides off the ball, but actually he was bringing Havertz closer to Eddie in that space. And then that was the midfield 3 that actually ended against Chelsea in the Premier League. So he's tried this on a few different occasions. And then again, as you mentioned, in this game, it was a much flatter front 5 with Rice at the base, Zinni inverting, and everyone sort of doing their thing. So it's like a 3rd different version of them 3 playing in a midfield 3 together to what we'd seen earlier. If we're to get the best out of these 2 players, I believe have talent, I think Arteta needs to quickly decide how he wants to deploy them, because we've seen them used in very different ways despite playing in midfield together on quite a few occasions already now.
Yeah. I think what you get, though, is game situation. So if you think back to the Chelsea game, when he deployed them in that way, when Smith Rowe came onto the left-hand side and Havertz was playing up high, James, the reason we were doing that was because Chelsea were pressing high. Yeah. So, and we couldn't play through Chelsea. So basically what he wanted was, he changed tactics second half. We talked about it on the show last week. He changed to a diamond shape, but the big change was using Havertz in this area. So he pushed Havertz up there to play over their press, to actually win some duels or to win some headers, and to get Bukayo Saka on the ball coming inside with White going on the overlap. So Havertz was clearly used in a different strategy there in that game. The difference between the Chelsea game and the Sheffield United game was, and we showed in the passes per defensive action, that they were near enough 30, weren't they? Their passes per defensive action. So
I might have forgotten to read out those defensive stats. Let's go through them now. Yeah, I mean, 20 tackles for Sheffield to our 13, and they had 29.6 passes per defensive action. Is that the highest we've ever seen?
Yeah,
I think
the highest.
We might have seen a 30 once, but
So the difference between the Chelsea and the Sheffield game was, and we've highlighted it already. So against Chelsea, they were pressing high. He couldn't play through him, so he instructed the Arsenal players to play long towards Havertz to play over their press. That was a tactical switch. In this game, he can't do that against Sheffield United because they're sitting deep. They're not pressing. They barely engaged. They allowed Saliba. Saliba was a spare man all game. He literally had the ball the whole game. So they're sitting deep. So basically, it's a different scenario. You can't sort of like use Havertz in that way or Smith Rowe in that way. So what you need to do, I think, is I think, sort of collapse situations, move them around, get into to move them out of their shape. And that was the situation on Saturday. We do not know what Arteta is telling his two number 8s. I gather watching him on the touchline on Saturday, he just wants us to retain possession. So they're following almost like, and I've heard Declan Rice say sometimes we just play within a structure. The manager tells us how he wants us to play. So I rather suspect in a way that they were following his instructions. But having said that, managers tell players how to play certain way in games. But when the game state opens up, that's when you want these players to use their skills and to make their own decisions, because you can play in a structure all right, but when the opportunity presents itself, you then have to use your footballing now.
Did Leandro Trossard, when he came on, albeit the game was won, did he come on and look like a player that was focused on instruction and structure and all that? No doubt he'll be thinking about that, but he just had a great time. And I'm patient with these two because I think the talent's there. And I've tried to explain why I think with Smith Rowe will take a little bit longer than with Havertz. But yeah, that's the kind of thing we need to get to, where you're seeing players go, you watch them and you go, yeah, they came on and they wanted to prove a point. I thought of the big changes that were made in this game, Trossard came on and was fantastic, but I thought Kiwior and Nketiah were the two that really I thought, yeah, you've given at least Arteta something to think about in these performances. With Havertz and Smith Rowe, I think he'll come. This is not a criticism of them. I think we're just trying to explain it. In fact, it's not a criticism at all, because I've actually just said that to get the best out of them, first Arteta needs to decide what they are as an 80% in this team, not 20% here, 30% there, a little bit there. Regularly, okay, they're going to have to play different roles sometimes, understand that. Rice will sometimes play as an 8, but mostly he sees him as a 6. Tell us, what do you think they are long term? And when they play, you're more often than not going to see them in this position or that position. And the fact that they've both played 3 different positions, Smith Rowe's played on the left 8, right 8, Havertz played right 8, left 8, up front. He needs to settle, I think, quite quickly, and then we'll start to see them find some form and some momentum. Let's talk about the Eddie Nketiah goal that puts Arsenal 1-0 up. And you're going to have to bear with me a sec, everyone, while I just get everyone into position. Oh, I've done it first time. There we go. So Declan Rice, you can see on the ball. There we go. Let's get that up there. Right. Declan Rice is on the ball. Now, this is showing what you were talking about. Look at Sousa getting back, Norwood getting back into the back 4 as well.
Back 6.
Back 6, of course.
Join the back 4.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. What I really liked about this goal, and this is going to sound really silly, it was a little bit of a punt and hope. And it's quite nice to see Arsenal go away from just, like that ball from Rice to Eddie that we're going to see in a sec. It's not really on necessarily. And he actually doesn't execute it that great, unless he meant it. And if he meant it, that's like unbelievable. But I mean, he might have, to be fair. It didn't look like a scuffed effort or whatever. I like the way it was just a case of let's just get it in the box. Now, Trusty and Eddie have a little battle here going on. And it's so funny, because I'm not going to praise Eddie necessarily. I'll praise him later in the goal. I think Trusty's a little bit of a shocker, because Trusty has Eddie where you'd want him, quite tight, you've got an eye on him. And Trusty gives him a little nudge. I try to illustrate it, bear with me everyone. I try to illustrate here that he just sort of nudges him away from goal. And I think Trusty's probably thinking, let's get him away. But all he's done is he's given him a run. And he's actually opened a space. And Sousa or whoever's there isn't picking up Eddie. Trusty isn't picking up Eddie. And when this ball, and Rice drives into the box, and he gets this ball into Eddie, he's got loads of space. But he then let me say that again. He doesn't have loads of space. But he has more than I think he would if Trusty had stayed a little bit more touch tight. So then Eddie, as I mentioned, let's take a back show one more time. As Rice drives forward, and by the way, as he's driving forward, White's overlapping, Saka's coming inside, Havertz, Smith Rowe, it's all the lanes that you've talked about so many times. When the ball comes into Eddie, his touch is really, really good. But I think Trusty played himself a little bit there, trying to do a little bit of dark arts off the ball, trying to reposition Eddie, actually put him in a better position, and Eddie took it with an unbelievable touch. And then a fantastic finish. It's really good from him. I'm not taking anything away from him. I thought the battle between them was interesting.
Yeah, and I think it was a brilliant first touch by Eddie to take it away from him, and a real composure in the finish. I slightly disagree with you on the Rice ball.
Go on.
For the simple reason I was behind that goal.
You think he meant it?
And I could see him look for that gap, because if you look at the positioning, James, of the way that
I'll try to illustrate.
Yeah, try and illustrate it. I think Robinson gets drawn over. Because Robinson and Trusty, they're sort of like in the middle. They're the two centre halves. He gets drawn over to this side, so you've got like four. They had 6v5, but 4 of them have been attracted to the right-hand side because Ben White has made that run up high. Yeah. Saka's came inside. Havertz has held his position. So we criticised Havertz for one or two things, but he held his position, which is what I think Arteta wanted. And that creates the space, I think. And Rice does see that gap. I see him look up. I was right behind that goal, and he tried to bend it in towards Eddie. And I agree with you. The Trusty pushing him helps Eddie. Yeah. But I think Rice was... So you think Rice?
I think it was. If I can't get the ball.
I think Rice was aiming for that gap. There was a slight gap there, and I think he was trying to thread it through to Eddie.
So I think, let's go back to here. I think in this position, we see where the ball goes. I think Rice is actually trying to hit more there and get it wrong. But
no, I think he's looking for a good area.
You think he sees the gap?
He sees an area. It's a good area to put a ball into. He wouldn't have known that Robinson would have come across to our right-hand side. So obviously that's helped him, but it's a really good area to put a ball in. You're asking questions of the defenders there. I think Trusty then gets isolated with Eddie and makes the wrong decision, and that gives Eddie that half a yard, and then Eddie takes it superbly. But I think it comes from a really good piece of work from Declan Rice and Trusty making a bad decision, and then Eddie took advantage.
If he's meant it and executed that well, that is unreal. And I'm not saying I don't think I'm not sat here going, he definitely didn't. Like the Mudryk goal last week.
No, you
where
didn't
I'm like, Mudryk definitely didn't. He might have. Yeah. I just think if he did, then wow. I mean, I'm starting to rate this player on another level. So, yeah, really, really good. And well done, Eddie Nketiah. We've got some of his numbers from the game. 38 touches, completed 100% of his dribbles, 15 out of 20 passes completed as well, doing his bit in build-up, doing his bit with the ball at his feet, and not just the goal scoring. 4 ground duels won, 3 shots on target and scored from all 3. I love the third goal. I've described it on every show I've been on since as an Adebayor goal. Adebayor used to do this thing, back to goal, and he'd turn and slap the ball, and Eddie did it. It was really, really good. There are questions over Eddie and his kind of long-term ability to lead the line, and you sent me these. In 27 games, 10 goals and assists in the 21-22 season, 9 goals and assists in 39 games last season, 5 goals and 1 assist so far this season. That's 24 goals and 3 assists in 70. So it's not a bad return. It's not an amazing return, but he's seen as the most instinctive goal scorer. Is he going to evolve into that guy?
I've got to be honest with you, I think the level that Eddie's at is his level. And I think he's in the team to score goals. So if he's not scoring goals, there's always going to be questions asked. It's strange that on a day when Eddie scored a hat-trick and had an outstanding performance, that we're still asking questions. And the reason for that, in my mind, is, first of all, that record you read out, it's roughly 1 goal every 3 games. I think that needs to be nearer to 2 goals, a goal every 2 games. Yeah. Some people will argue that he comes off the bench in some of those numbers, which is fair enough. Yeah, makes a difference. But he's in the team to score goals, and if he's not scoring goals, there's always going to be questions asked. And I think part of it also is, if you think back to last season when he came in when Jesus got injured in the World Cup, he started really well and he was outstanding. Won us a game against Man United, but then he went through a real blip, didn't he? So much so that Leonardo Trossard came in and replaced him. And so it's interesting. Some people think that we need another striker. The fact that he's willing to play backup to Jesus, I think, and he's a squad player, I think works in his favour. Yeah. And overall, this season, he hadn't scored for 8 or 9 games. I think he scored against Forest in the first game. His last goal, I think, was against Fulham. So he had been going through a little bit of a blip, so questions were being asked. I think in certain games, his hold-up play against the big teams, like I noticed against Man City, wasn't good enough. He wasn't that great, I didn't think, in the Tottenham game. But, Saturday, that is what he's all about. And I don't want to criticise him too much, because he was the hat-trick hero. He's a hell-end boy. And he scored 3 great goals. So I think we have to sort of like give him credit, but I think the debate's always going to be there, James, with him.
I think what I love about this game from Eddie was it wasn't just 3 tap-ins, it was 3 really great goals, and he really played his part in.
Do you think he's going to kick on now? Do you think this is going to sort of like...
I believe Eddie Nketiah will continue to improve, will continue to kick on, will continue to score goals for Arsenal. My doubts are whether he's as good as Jesus, Trossard, other options we've been linked with Ivan Toney. My other question is whether he provides a different enough option from the bench, hence the links on Ivan Toney, and also whether we as a team play in a way that actually serves an Eddie Nketiah. I feel like he is changing a lot more for us than we are for him.
Fair point.
And I've got to give him a lot of credit for that because, you know, I think he is someone who wants early balls into the box, maybe a little bit more direct play. Lee Judge made a great point that he looks like maybe a kind of striker that would benefit from having a strike partner.
Yeah,
you know, maybe he'd do brilliant in that sense. You know, look at, I'm not saying Brentford, but I'm not saying he should go there, but Brentford play with 2 up top and, you know, in a 5-3-2, whatever at times. I could see him doing really well, running the channels, getting into good goal scoring positions, being fed by wing backs, having a strike partner. I think he is doing so much to be what Arteta needs him to be. I don't know if Arteta and Arsenal are doing as much for Eddie, but then I believe that ultimately the player should adapt for the team and the manager and the system more so than the other way around. But in this, it was good to see us actually doing that by getting the ball from Rice into Eddie early, and he took it really well, and I'm really happy for him.
Just a quick question, right then. If Jesus was out for the season, and he's been at Arsenal now for sort of like a season and a bit, and he has been injured. I sent you the numbers. He was injured 17 games last season, 4 games already this season. That was the 5th on, so 22 games he's missed out of 48, Jesus.
Yeah.
Do you think Eddie is a good enough goal scorer to lead the line for Arsenal, yes or no?
To win the title?
Yeah.
I have my doubts. That's all I'll say. I don't want to say much more than that because he's done really well. But yeah, I have my doubts. But
that's the thing, isn't it?
He's scoring goals.
He needs to be more consistent, and I think that's the word. I think, you know, we saw what he's capable of. I want to see more of that from him. If he and I know it's Sheffield United because that's the other thing, but I want to see him doing that more often. You know, the poacher's goal, the way he took that one, the brilliant touch and the instinctive finish, and also have the confidence to take. I've never seen him. He hasn't scored a goal from outside the box before, has he? He literally took that and straight out of his feet and bang. I want to see him do that more often, and maybe that will give him a bit of confidence to do that more.
I hope so.
But you know, I love Eddie. You know, but I'm just thinking. You know, Dan Potts made a great point on his fan cam on Saturday about, you know, we had 4 strikers when we were invincible, albeit Kanu and Wiltord weren't used that much because Omri and Bergkamp were very rarely injured, and they were such great players. In fact, Kanu barely played. But there's doubts, isn't there? We need another striker.
Yeah.
But I think Arteta, you know, the way he talks so glowingly and lovingly of Eddie, I think he's quite happy with Eddie, and I think Eddie will carry on. Eddie is a team man. And I'm so pleased with him because at the end of the day, he's also a human being. He's lost a relative recently, and he dedicated that to his auntie, I think. But you know, let's face it, he had all 3 of his goals were outstanding finishes, and full credit to him for his performance on Saturday.
I agree, and I really hope he builds on in what is a really big week away at West Ham, away at Newcastle. I'm not even one of these that are looking at and going, yeah, West Ham doesn't matter, it's all about Newcastle. No, I want to get through the West Ham game. I think he'll probably play in that game, or certainly play a part. And I really hope he delivers because, you know, it's a big week.
It's an interesting debate.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give him any disrespect, but I think it's a debate worth having. And we try always to have honest debates on this show.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to disrespect a player. In fact, Saturday I came out of that stadium and I was so pleased with him getting his hat-trick, and I was talking about him on the train home with supporters who loved his performance.
Agreed. We got, just very quickly, William Saliba and Smith Rowe, some numbers. William Saliba, 134 touches in the game, 96% pass accuracy, 12 ball recoveries, completed all 3 of his long passes. He was superb on the day, as I mentioned, Kivior was as well. Smith Rowe, 38 touches, 83% pass accuracy, completed 25 of his final third passes. You know, and what's interesting about this, 1 key pass, 1 assist, he won 2 of his 3 aerial duels. What's interesting about it is we were talking about him kind of doing the basics and getting up there, but still some of his numbers were quite good. That's why I always say marry the stats with the eye test. It's not just about reading the numbers and going, oh, he must have been great. You know, he did okay, and he's going to build on it.
Then we had players coming off the bench as well, doing things on Saturday as well. It's great to see Fabio Vieira come on and get his first ever goal at the Emirates in the Premier League. It was a penalty, and Takahiro Tomiyasu, who became the 9th Japanese player, the first Japanese player to score for Arsenal, the 9th Japanese player to score in the Premier League. The team loved it when he scored, didn't they? It made a perfect day. It was a perfect day for Arteta, James, because he rotated the squad. Everyone came on. Players feel part of the project. He's keeping everybody interested. And I think, you know, it was in the end, it was a comfortable victory, as you said when we came up today, without you know, too much energy exerted.
Agreed. Let's go through the roundup stats to end the show. Always got to end the show on roundup stats. Always Graham's. Well, when you weren't here, I felt like I was under-delivering when I didn't have them. I do feel bad for. I do apologise. But
I'm going to test you today on some of these. Arsenal,
go for it.
Right, Arsenal are now unbeaten after 10 games for the first time in a Premier League season since 2007-2008.
Yeah, nice.
Arsenal kept consecutive clean sheets in the Premier League for the first time since December 2021, which was as many as they'd kept in the previous 15 games beforehand. So Reyes had 2 consecutive clean sheets. I thought actually he was better on Saturday. One absolutely dynamic long pass out to Martinelli in the first half.
Yeah, he's actually racked up a few clean sheets already at Arsenal.
He's interesting. He's joint first now, 4, along with Johnston and Vicario Tottenham.
For the Golden Glove?
Yeah.
And he missed the first 4 games.
Yeah. Arsenal have now gone 13 years since losing to a promoted side at the Emirates in the Premier League. Did you know that?
Newcastle at home, I believe.
Yeah, the record now stands at 32 wins and 5 draws. Nice. And finally, James, I'm going to test you on this one. Eddie Nketiah, because he's been the theme of the show today after his sensational hat-trick, became the 22nd Arsenal player to score a hat-trick in the Premier League. The first since who v Leeds back in February 2021.
I wish I could pretend I knew this. I might have got it, but cameraman Joe, well done Joe, had a big up production. He got it. It was Aubameyang.
Aubameyang, yeah. Behind closed doors, I think, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
And then the first Englishman to score a hat-trick since Theo Walcott v West Brom in May 2015.
There you go. Well done, Eddie Nketiah. Well done, Arsenal. 3 points, 5 goals, a rotator side. What more can you hope for? It was perfect. Clean sheet as well. David Raya looking good. Arsenal beat Sheffield United and go into a big week. You've got to remember that after losing to Lens, we beat Man City. After not a great performance against Chelsea, we then go and win in Seville. A lot of people saying a draw would have been all right, but we went and won that game. We've now scored 5, got a clean sheet, and another big week is coming. It feels relentless for Arsenal, but we're loving covering it every step of the way. West Ham away, Wednesday night, Arsenal. We'll be playing in the Carabao Cup 4th round, and we'll be keeping up to date with every kick of a ball on the watch along here on AFTV, and then of course all the previews and all the build up to the big Newcastle game on Saturday, only here on this channel, and of course on the watch along on the weekend as well. Graham, big thank you as always. Catch you all in a bit.